Earlier this year, a single Iranian drone came screaming toward a 100,000-ton American supercarrier in the Arabian Sea, and seconds later, a stealth fighter blew it out of the sky before it ever got close. That was one drone. But the thing that actually keeps military planners up at night is a far bigger version of that night. Not one drone, but 1,000 of them, cheap, expendable, all arriving at once. It's called a swarm, and the logic is seductive. No single drone has to be smart or survivable if there are simply too many of them to stop. On paper, it sounds like the perfect way to overwhelm and sink the most powerful warship ever built. There's just one problem. A U.S. carrier is one of the single hardest targets to kill on planet Earth. And any swarm that tried would be walking straight into one of the most lethal defensive systems ever devised. Here's exactly what happens when the drones meet the carrier. Stay with me. First, let's be fair to the drones because the threat is real. The kind of attack drone we're talking about, like Iran's Shahed series, can cost as little as $20,000 to $35,000 a piece, yet still carry well over 100 pounds of explosives. Defense planners call them one-way attack munitions or loitering munitions, drones that fly themselves straight into the target and detonate. Everyone else just calls them kamikaze drones. And the world has already seen what they can do, because Russia has battered Ukrainian cities for years with the very same Shahed design. They're cheap, they're simple, and the whole idea behind a swarm is brutally logical. Don't try to be clever, just send more targets than the defenders can possibly shoot down. Drown them in sheer numbers. And there's a real catch that defense analysts genuinely worry about. The missile a warship fires to knock one of these drones down can cost $2 to $4 million. So every time a $30,000 drone forces the Navy to burn a multi-million-dollar interceptor, the math runs the wrong way. And here's the deeper worry. A warship can only carry so many interceptors, and it cannot simply reload those launch cells in the middle of a battle at sea. Throw enough cheap drones at a carrier, the theory goes, and eventually you bleed it dry of expensive missiles faster than it can kill the swarm. It's a clever idea, so why is actually launching that attack still a very, very bad move? Because the carrier was never going to fight alone. A U.S. aircraft carrier never sails by itself. It travels inside a carrier strike group, a moving fortress that typically includes a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, a handful of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, at least one silent Virginia-class attack submarine prowling somewhere below, and the carrier's own air wing of up to 90 aircraft, all built around a single job. Keep that 1,000-foot, 100,000-ton ship and its more than 5,000 sailors alive. And it begins with seeing the threat first. Long before a swarm gets anywhere near the ship, an E-2 Hawkeye, a radar plane with a giant rotating dome on its back, is orbiting high overhead, scanning hundreds of miles in every direction. The instant those drones lift off, the strike group sees them coming, and tying everything together is the Aegis combat system, a network so powerful it can track hundreds of incoming targets at once, sort the real threats from the noise, and automatically assign the right weapon to each one, faster than any human crew ever could. The swarm's single biggest advantage, surprise, is gone before it even starts. Then the layers open up, from the outside in. The first to meet the swarm are the carrier's own fighter jets, F-35s and F/A-18, Super Hornets flying combat air patrol, miles out from the ship. And this isn't hypothetical. It's exactly what happened for real this past February, when an F-35C launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln, shot down an Iranian Shahed drone that bored in toward the ship in the Arabian Sea, roughly 500 miles off Iran's coast, and nowhere near close enough to matter. The F-35 in particular is a stealth fighter. It can push out ahead of the fleet, spot the swarm as it forms, and start thinning it out while feeding targeting data back to every ship in the group. Now picture not one fighter, but a wall of them, picking drones out of the sky long before they're anything more than dots on a radar screen. Anything that slips past the jets runs straight into the next layer, the escorts. Those Aegis cruisers and destroyers carry standard missiles, the SM-2 and the SM-6, that can reach out and kill a target more than 150 miles away. Behind them sit medium-range missiles, like the Evolved Sea Sparrow, for anything that lives long enough to get closer. The drones haven't even laid eyes on the carrier yet, and they're already being deleted from the sky in waves. But what about the ones that somehow survive all of that? The leakers, the lucky few that punch through everything and close in on the ship itself. That's where it gets truly nasty, because the last line of defense is the stuff of nightmares for an incoming drone. The ship volleys out short-range rolling airframe missiles, built to swat down anything that's leaked through. And if a drone somehow survives even that and gets within about 1.5 miles of the hull, it meets the phalanx, a radar-guided Gatling gun that spins up and hurls 20-millimeter rounds at up to 4,500 per minute. It is quite literally a wall of metal thrown into the air, a last-second curtain that fills the space a drone has to fly through. The carrier itself carries 4 of those guns, plus short-range missile launchers of its own, as a final, built-in safety net, and it's not for show. Just this past January, the Lincoln ran a live-fire drill with that very system in the South China Sea, proving it could answer a threat the instant one appeared. And here's the part most people never think about. A lot of these drones can be beaten without firing anything at all. The strike group carries electronic warfare gear, powerful jammers that scramble a drone's guidance and blind its sensors, and decoys that lure it into chasing a target that was never there. A drone that can't find the ship simply wanders off into open ocean and splashes down, having hit nothing but water. Now, does all of that make a carrier invincible? No, and the Navy doesn't pretend it does. That cost exchange problem is real. So is the worry that a large enough swarm, dozens of small targets arriving almost at once, could compress the defender's reaction time from minutes down to seconds and strain even a strike group's deep magazines of interceptors, which is exactly why the Navy is racing to field cheaper answers. Rapid-fire lasers that cost about $1 a shot and never run out of ammunition, and even its own swarms of small defensive drones, loitering interceptors, built to patrol the skies and hunt the attackers down. The threat is taken dead seriously. It's just answered with overwhelming force. And none of this is theory anymore. In the current fighting across the Middle East, an open campaign U.S. commanders have named Operation Epic Fury, American forces say they've already destroyed more than 100 Iranian naval vessels and crippled Iran's purpose-built drone carrier, a warship with its own ski-jump flight deck, built to launch exactly these kinds of attacks from the open sea. U.S. carriers and their escorts have been knocking Iranian drones and missiles out of the sky for real, while Iran's repeated boasts of having actually struck the Abraham Lincoln have never been backed by a shred of evidence. The carrier killer headlines keep slamming into the same brick wall. The layered defense holds, strip away the hype, and the arithmetic of a swarm flips around. To even attempt it, an attacker has to spend his entire fleet of drones and his single best shot at surprise. And the most likely result, analysts say, is that the carrier rides it out and keeps right on launching aircraft. Could a big enough swarm score a hit and do damage? Possibly. But actually sinking a 100,000-ton supercarrier with cheap drones remains, in the expert's own word, improbable. So 1,000 cheap drones against one supercarrier sounds, on paper, like a knockout punch. But those drones don't face one ship. They face an entire strike group, a wall of fighters, layer after layer of missiles, jammers that turn their own guidance against them, and a spinning Gatling gun for a welcome mat. Every layer hands the survivors to the next one, tighter and deadlier, until there's nothing left to arrive. The whole plan depends on the carrier being alone and blind. It is neither. The drones were cheap. Finding out why that didn't matter was the most expensive lesson their owners ever paid for.